The Kethamari fleet hung in the darkness of space like sleeping giants. Their bioships, massive creatures bred for war and exploration, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that showed their growing anxiety. These weren't mere machines, but living vessels, their hulls breathing with organic rhythms that had carried the Kethamari across galaxies for millions of years. Fleet Commander Hixtel stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Void Serpent. His 4 amber eyes fixed on the impossible, readings flooding his screens. His serpentine body coiled around the command pedestal, scales shifting from deep blue to worried purple. The data made no sense. According to their ancient records, the third planet from this yellow star should be home to nothing more than primitive mammals barely learning to use fire. "Navigation Officer Zixra, confirm our coordinates," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 centuries commanding deep space expeditions. The younger Kethamari's tentacles danced across her bioconsole, interfacing directly with the ship's nervous system. "Confirmed, Commander. Sol System, Orion Arm, Milky Way, we are exactly where we should be." But the readings streaming in told a different story. Massive structures orbited the third planet like jeweled rings. Energy signatures blazed across their sensors with the intensity of young suns. Most disturbing of all were the ships. Thousands of them moved through space in formations that seemed to bend reality itself. Science Officer Kelmos, his multiple eyes analyzing data streams simultaneously, turned to face his commander. His usually calm demeanor cracked as he spoke. "Sir, these energy readings, they're beyond our measurement capabilities. Our instruments are showing power outputs that should be impossible for any civilization." Through the bioship's transparent sections, they could see other vessels in their fleet. 12 massive Kethamari dreadnoughts, each one capable of glassing entire planets, suddenly seemed insignificant. The organic weapons that had conquered star systems now felt like toys compared to what waited ahead. "What do you think happened here?" whispered communications specialist Nexilia, her voice barely audible through the ship's neural network. Hixtel's mind raced through possibilities. Had some other galactic power claimed this system? Had the primitive species somehow acquired advanced technology? Or worse, had they encountered one of the legendary precursor artifacts that could elevate entire civilizations overnight? The Void Serpent shuddered slightly as its living hull reacted to the commander's stress. These bioships were extensions of their crews, feeling their emotions and responding to their mental states. Right now, the entire fleet was broadcasting waves of confusion and growing fear. Meanwhile, deep within Earth's integrated defense network, Captain Minho sat in what appeared to be a simple meditation chamber. The walls showed scenes of flowing water and mountain forests, but this peaceful setting was deceiving. His consciousness was linked to a quantum computing system that spanned several dimensions, processing information faster than entire Kethamari fleets could generate it. Minho's awareness extended across the solar system like a gentle web. He could feel the alien ship's biosignatures, sense their crew's emotional states, even taste their growing panic through quantum entanglement fields. The Kethamari had no idea that humanity had been watching their approach for decades, tracking their journey from distant galaxies with sensors that existed in folded space-time. "They're beautiful," he murmured, studying the organic architecture of the alien vessels. "Look at those biomechanical integration patterns. They've achieved something we gave up pursuing millennia ago." A soft chime announced an incoming presence. Lieutenant Hai Wan materialized beside him, her current form a crystalline avatar that sparkled with internal light. She could have appeared as flesh and blood, but preferred the honesty of showing her true nature, as pure consciousness given temporary form. "The Kethamari fleet has stopped at the outer detection grid," she reported, her voice carrying harmonics that no biological throat could produce. "Their bioships are showing signs of severe stress. Should we initiate contact protocols?" Minho smiled, his enhanced senses picking up the aliens' emotional broadcasts from millions of kilometers away. "They're trying to understand what they're seeing. 500,000 years ago, they catalogued Earth as a world of primitive tool users. Now they're detecting energy signatures that outshine stars and technology that breaks their understanding of physics." Through the quantum network, they watched as the alien commander studied his readings with growing bewilderment. The Kethmari had built their entire civilization around biological technology, growing their ships and weapons rather than manufacturing them. It was an elegant approach that had served them well across the galaxy, but humanity had taken a different path. While the Kethmari perfected bioengineering, humans had learned to manipulate reality at the quantum level. They had become gardeners of space-time itself, cultivating possibilities and pruning paradoxes with the same care the aliens used to breed their living ships. Their stress levels are approaching critical thresholds, Haywan observed. We should act soon, or they might flee back to wherever they came from. Minho nodded, already calculating the gentlest approach. These weren't invaders or conquerors. They were explorers returning to a world they remembered as primitive, only to find something that challenged their entire understanding of existence. The fear radiating from their fleet was almost palpable. Let them process what they're seeing first, he decided. They need time to accept that everything they thought they knew about this system has changed. When they're ready, we'll show them that not all changes lead to destruction. In the depths of space, the Kethmari fleet continued its cautious approach, their bioships pulsing with nervous energy as they tried to comprehend the impossible civilization that had grown in their absence. The Kethmari communication array crackled to life as Hixtel prepared to broadcast their standard first contact message. The bioorganic transmitters, living creatures bred specifically for interstellar communication, began their ancient ritual of establishing peaceful intent. These were protocols refined over millions of years, tested across thousands of species. Encounters, beginning transmission on all frequencies, announced Communications Officer Kexma, her tentacles interfacing with the ship's neural pathways. The message was simple and universal, mathematical sequences that proved intelligence, followed by basic pictographs showing peaceful intentions. The transmission had barely left their biotransmitters when reality seemed to hiccup around them. Space itself rippled like water disturbed by a stone. The stars shifted, twisted, and suddenly the Kethmari fleet found themselves surrounded by the ancient void, whispered Navigator Zixra, her scales turning pale with shock. Where moments before had been empty space, dozens of human vessels now hung in perfect formation around the Kethmari fleet. But these weren't ships in any sense the aliens understood. They appeared to be crafted from pure starlight, their hulls shimmering with captured solar energy. Some looked like crystalline sculptures that sang with harmonic frequencies. Others resembled living aurora, their surfaces flowing with colors that had no names in Kethmari language. The largest vessel positioned itself directly in front of the Void Serpent. It was beautiful and terrifying, a ship that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Parts of it phased in and out of visible reality, while other sections appeared solid enough to touch. Energy patterns danced across its surface, like living beings, creating geometric designs that hurt to look at directly. "Sir," Kexma's voice trembled as she monitored the communication channels. "We're receiving a response. They're speaking perfect Kethmari." Hixtel's 4 eyes widened. "Impossible. Run a linguistic analysis." "Already done, Commander. They're using not just our primary language, but all 17 regional dialects. The pronunciation is flawless, better than most native speakers from our outer colonies." The main viewing screen flickered to life, showing the interior of the human flagship. The sight that greeted them defied everything the Kethmari thought they knew about alien civilizations. The bridge appeared to be carved from a single piece of living crystal, with surfaces that flowed and shifted like water. Streams of light moved through the walls like blood through veins, carrying information in patterns too complex for Kethmari minds to follow. At the center of this impossible space stood a human male. He was tall by Kethmari standards, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold depths of knowledge that shouldn't exist in any mortal being. His clothing appeared to be made from woven starlight, shifting between solid fabric and pure energy based on some unknowable pattern. "Greetings, Fleet Commander Hixtel of the Kethmari Dominion," the human said, his voice carrying perfectly through their communication system. "I am Admiral Tay Jin of the Terran Collective. We have been expecting your return to this system." The words hit the Kethmari bridge like a physical blow. Hixtel's serpentine body coiled tighter around his command station, scales shifting to deep purple with shock. Expecting us? That's impossible. We only decided to return to this system 3 cycles ago. Admiral Tajin's expression remained gentle, almost paternal. We detected your civilization's approach from the Andromeda sector approximately 47 of your cycles ago. We have been aware of your movements for quite some time. Behind Admiral Tajin, other humans moved through their crystalline bridge with fluid grace. Some appeared to be made of pure light, while others seemed solid enough to touch. One figure, a woman with silver hair that moved like liquid mercury, stepped forward. "I am Commander So Young of the Linguistic Division," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in the Kethmari's bone structure. "We hope you don't mind that we learned your language. It took our children about 6 minutes to decode your linguistic patterns from your initial transmissions." The Kethmari bridge fell into absolute silence. 6 minutes. Their most advanced translation matrices, biocomputers that had evolved over millions of years, required decades to properly decode a completely alien language. The implications were staggering. 6 minutes, Hixtel repeated, his voice barely a whisper. Commander So Young smiled, and her expression held genuine warmth. "Our young ones found your language structure quite elegant. The way you layer emotional context through tonal shifts reminded them of some of our own ancient dialects. Very sophisticated for a species that achieved spaceflight only recently." Science. Officer Kelmos, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally found his voice. "Recently, we have been traveling between stars for over 2 million cycles." "Ah," Admiral Tajin nodded respectfully. "Forgive me. From our perspective, 2 million years is quite recent. We've been observing galactic development for considerably longer." Around the human bridge, holographic displays showed real-time images of the Kethmari fleet. But these weren't normal sensor readings. The humans were somehow seeing inside their bioships, monitoring the health of their living vessels, reading the emotional states of every crew member. The level of technological sophistication was beyond anything in Kethmari records. "Your bioships are magnificent," commented another human, this one appearing as a shifting pattern of geometric light. "The integration between organic and quantum systems is remarkably elegant. We stopped using biological technology several 100,000 years ago, but we've always admired species that perfected the art." Weapons Officer Tixner, who had remained silent at his post, finally spoke up. "Sir, our bioships are reporting something strange. They're calming down. Despite the situation, their stress levels are dropping rapidly." Hixtel looked around his bridge and realized it was true. The void serpent, which had been pulsing with nervous energy moments before, was now settling into a more relaxed rhythm. The ship's living hull was responding to something the humans were doing, some form of biosoothing that their technology couldn't detect. "We're broadcasting harmony frequencies," Admiral Tajin explained, as if reading his thoughts. "Your ships are living beings, and they were in distress. We thought we might help them feel more comfortable." The casual way he mentioned influencing their bioships' emotional states sent another wave of shock through the Kethmari crew. These humans weren't just technologically advanced. They understood Kethmari bioengineering better than the Kethmari themselves. "Who are you?" Hixtel asked, his voice filled with a mixture of wonder and growing fear. Admiral Tajin's smile deepened, and for a moment his form seemed to shimmer with possibilities, as if he existed in multiple states simultaneously. "We are what this system's children became after you left, Commander. We are what happens when a species learns to grow without losing its curiosity about the universe." The human ships around them pulsed with gentle light, their crystalline hulls singing in harmonies that made the Kethmari bioships respond with their own musical frequencies. For the first time in millions of years, the Kethmari were no longer the most advanced species in the room. The transport beam that carried Hixtel from his bioship to the human vessel felt like being dissolved and reassembled by gentle hands. One moment he stood on the familiar organic deck of the Void Serpent. The next he materialized inside what could only be described as a living dream. The human ship, Harmony, defied every principle of engineering the Kethmari had developed. Over millions of years, the walls breathed with a rhythm that felt almost familiar, yet completely alien. What appeared to be organic tissue at first glance revealed itself to be something far more complex under closer examination. Quantum particles danced through cellular structures, creating patterns that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Welcome aboard," said Dr. Yun-Su, greeting the small delegation of Kethmari officers. She appeared human enough, with kind eyes and a warm smile, but there was something in her gaze that spoke of experiences spanning millennia. "I hope the transport didn't disorient you too much. We've tried to make it as gentle as possible." Hickstel steadied himself, his four eyes taking in details that his mind struggled to process. The corridor they stood in seemed to stretch infinitely in both directions, yet he somehow knew the ship wasn't that large. The walls displayed what looked like windows, showing the star field outside, but the angles were all wrong, as if they were viewing space from multiple positions simultaneously. "This ship," he began, his voice filled with wonder. "It's alive." Dr. Yun-Su nodded, running her hand along the wall with obvious affection. The surface responded to her touch with gentle pulses of light that rippled outward like waves on water. "In a way, yes, though it's more accurate to say it's a hybrid. We learned long ago that the best technology comes from combining organic growth with quantum engineering. The ship grows itself based on our needs, while quantum processors handle the complex calculations required for interdimensional travel." Science Officer Kelmos, who had accompanied Hickstel on this visit, extended one of his sensor tentacles toward the wall. The moment he made contact, his scales flashed bright yellow with shock. "Commander, this material, it's processing information at rates that shouldn't be possible. The quantum density is off our measurement scales. This is our standard science vessel," Dr. Yun-Su explained casually as she began walking down the corridor. The floor beneath their feet felt solid, yet seemed to adjust its texture to provide perfect traction for each species' different locomotion needs. "Nothing fancy, really. We use ships like this for routine galaxy surveys." Communications Officer Kexma, who had been silent since boarding, finally found her voice. "Galaxy surveys? You mean you've explored beyond this system?" Dr. Yun-Su paused, looking genuinely surprised by the question. "Oh yes, extensively. We've mapped your entire territory, actually. Beautiful work on the Kepler colonies, by the way. Very elegant terraforming techniques. We've been watching your civilization develop for about 40,000 years now." The casual way she delivered this information hit the Kethmari delegation like a physical blow. 40,000 years of observation. Their most secret colonies, their greatest achievements, all watched by these beings who treated interstellar surveillance as routine. As they walked, the corridor began to change around them. The walls became more transparent, revealing the ship's internal workings. Streams of energy flowed through organic conduits like blood through veins, but these weren't carrying nutrients. They were carrying pure information, processed thoughts, and what looked suspiciously like compressed space-time itself. "How do you travel between galaxies?" Hickstel asked, though part of him wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "We don't travel through space so much as we fold it," Dr. Yun-Su replied. "Distance becomes meaningless when you can manipulate the fabric of reality directly. Though we're always careful not to disturb local space-time too much. We learned that lesson the hard way about 50,000 years ago." They passed through what appeared to be a recreational area where several humans were engaged in activities that defied physics. One woman was juggling what looked like miniature galaxies, each one spinning with real stars and planets. A man was painting with colors that seemed to exist in dimensions the Kethmari couldn't perceive, creating art that hurt to look at directly. "Hobbies," Dr. Yun-Su explained, noticing their stares. "We've found that creativity is essential for mental health, especially on long voyages. Ginny there has been working on that galaxy sculpture for about 3 centuries. She's very particular about getting the spiral arm dynamics just right." They reached a large viewing area where the ship's hull became completely transparent. The view outside showed not just the space around Earth, but seemed to display multiple layers of reality simultaneously. Kethmari bioships floated peacefully alongside human vessels, while in the background, structures that spanned entire planets went about their mysterious business. But what made Hixtel's legs nearly give out wasn't the impossible technology or the casual mention of galactic surveillance. It was the small human child sitting cross-legged in what appeared to be empty space beyond the ship's hull. The boy, who couldn't have been more than 8 years old by human standards, was manipulating matter at the atomic level with his bare hands. Tiny points of light danced around the child as he carefully arranged particles into increasingly complex patterns. What started as simple hydrogen atoms quickly became more complex elements. Then molecular chains, then something that made the Kethmari sensors scream warnings about dangerous energy buildups. "That's Woojin," Dr. Yunsu said with obvious pride. "He's working on a school project about stellar formation. He's recreating the birth of your home system, actually. He finds your binary star formation absolutely fascinating." As they watched, the child's creation began to take on a familiar pattern. 2 points of light circled each other in a complex dance, gathering matter and energy until they blazed with the same frequencies as the twin stars that warmed the Kethmari homeworld. The scale was miniature, but every detail was perfect, down to the solar wind interactions and magnetic field fluctuations. Woojin looked up and noticed the aliens watching him. His face broke into a bright smile, and he waved enthusiastically with one hand while continuing to spin forming solar systems with the other. "Hello. Are you the Kethmari? Your star system is really cool. I love how your binary stars create those spiral magnetic fields." The child's casual manipulation of stellar formation, his cheerful demeanor while creating suns, the way he spoke about their home system with the enthusiasm of a young student discussing a favorite topic, all combined to create a moment of perfect, terrifying clarity for the Kethmari delegation. "Hey, child," Hixtel whispered, his voice barely audible. "Creating stars as homework." Dr. Yunsu nodded, her expression gentle but tinged with something that might have been sympathy. "Children learn so much faster than adults. Woojin there has been studying astrophysics since he was 4. He should have his first galaxy completed by the time he turns 12. Around them, the ship, Harmony, continued its gentle journey through space, its living walls pulsing with the rhythm of technologies that treated the fundamental forces of the universe as building blocks for education and art. The demonstration chamber aboard the human vessel, Harmony, was larger than most Kethmari capital ships, yet somehow felt intimate and welcoming. The walls displayed a perfect three-dimensional map of their local galactic cluster, with billions of stars twinkling like jewels against the dark backdrop of space. Each point of light represented entire solar systems, civilizations, and histories that the Kethmari had spent millennia cataloging. Engineer Su Jin stood at the center of this cosmic display, looking impossibly young even by human standards. Her appearance suggested someone barely out of their teenage years, yet she moved through the holographic galaxy with the confidence of someone who had personally visited every corner of it. Her casual outfit of what looked like woven starlight shifted colors as she moved, responding to her emotional state and the quantum fields around her. "This is fairly routine work," she explained to the Kethmari delegation, her voice carrying the enthusiasm of someone discussing a favorite hobby. "We've been doing stellar engineering for about 200,000 years now. Moving star systems is actually quite simple once you understand space-time manipulation at the quantum level." Hixtel watched in growing horror as Sujin gestured casually at the display. 3 star systems in the outer rim suddenly began moving, their positions shifting with smooth precision through space that should have been empty. The movements weren't violent or chaotic. Instead, they flowed like a carefully choreographed dance, each star system maintaining perfect gravitational balance as it relocated to a new position millions of light-years away. "We relocated these to create better gravitational harmonics for the civilizations living there," Sujin continued, highlighting several inhabited worlds that the Kethmari recognized from their own exploration records. The Zeltar never even noticed the transition. "We did it gradually over a few millennia, adjusting their local space-time so smoothly that their instruments registered no change at all." Science officer Kelmos, who had been taking detailed recordings of everything they witnessed, suddenly stopped. His multiple eyes went wide as the implications hit him. You moved entire star systems to make life more comfortable for species you've never even contacted. Of course, Sujin replied, looking genuinely surprised by the question. The Zeltar were having trouble with stellar radiation affecting their agricultural worlds. A simple repositioning solved the problem while preserving their natural development. They'll probably figure out stellar engineering on their own in another 10,000 years or so. The casual way she discussed manipulating the fundamental structure of space and time, treating the movement of suns like rearranging furniture, sent waves of shock through the Kethmari delegation. Their entire civilization had built massive, ships capable of crossing between galaxies, yet they had never imagined that moving the galaxies themselves was possible. As if summoned by the growing tension in the room, weapons specialist Hyunwoo materialized beside them. He didn't walk through a door or use a transport beam. One moment the space was empty, the next he stood there as if he had always existed in that spot. His appearance was more disturbing than Sujin's youthful enthusiasm. He looked like a perfectly normal human male, middle-aged and calm, yet something in his presence made the air itself feel dangerous. Interesting that you're showing them the stellar engineering first, he commented to Sujin with a gentle smile. I was going to start with our defensive capabilities, he gestured, and the galactic display shifted to show the Kethmari home system. Their proud bioships, the massive dreadnoughts that had conquered dozens of star systems, appeared as tiny dots around their homeworld. Next to them, almost invisible markers indicated the presence of human observation posts. Our children's toys have more destructive potential than your entire fleet, Hyunwoo said matter-of-factly, his tone carrying no malice or threat. But we deactivate all the dangerous functions, of course. Safety first, especially when young ones are learning about quantum mechanics. To demonstrate his point, he called up an image of what appeared to be a simple crystalline cube, no larger than a Kethmari fist. The object rotated slowly in the holographic display, its surfaces reflecting light in patterns that seemed to extend beyond normal three-dimensional space. This is a standard educational toy for our 8-year-olds, Hyunwoo explained. It teaches basic principles of dimensional folding and temporal mechanics. In its active state, it could collapse your entire solar system into a singularity about the size of a grain of sand. But don't worry, he added quickly, seeing the Kethmari delegation's horrified expressions. We removed those functions generations ago. Now it only creates pocket universes suitable for sandbox play. Communications Officer Kieksma, who had remained silent throughout most of their visit, finally found her voice. Pocket universes for children to play in. Oh yes, Sujin nodded enthusiastically. It's much safer than letting them experiment with our actual reality. Last century, a group of kindergartners accidentally created a time loop that lasted 3 months. Very educational, but quite disruptive to the local timeline. The display shifted again, this time showing a comprehensive overview of Kethmari space that was more detailed than their own military charts. Every bioship, every colony, every secret research station was marked with perfect accuracy. Worse, the timestamps on the data showed that humans had been maintaining these records for millennia. Director Jamin, an elderly human who had been quietly observing from the back of the chamber, stepped forward. His presence was different from the others. Where Sujin radiated youthful energy and Hyunwoo carried controlled power, Jamin emanated something far more unsettling, infinite patience combined with absolute certainty. Please understand, he said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in dimensions the Kethmari couldn't perceive. We could have made contact with your people centuries ago. We chose not to interfere. We believe every species deserves the chance to develop naturally, to find their own path through the cosmos. His words hit Hixtel like a physical blow. The implications were staggering. These humans had been watching the Kethmari civilization develop for tens of thousands of years. They had observed every major discovery, every technological breakthrough, every expansion into new territories, all while possessing capabilities that made Kethmari achievements look like the fumbling attempts of children learning to walk. You've been watching us, Hixtel said, his voice barely above a whisper. Protecting you, Jamin corrected gently. There are forces in this galaxy that would have eliminated species like yours long ago, Cosmic predators, rogue artificial intelligences, reality storms that can unravel entire sectors of space. You've been exploring a universe that seems safe and orderly because we've been working behind the scenes to keep it that way. Around them, the holographic display showed evidence of this protection. Asteroid swarms that had mysteriously changed course before impacting Kethmari colonies. Hostile alien fleets that had simply vanished before reaching inhabited systems. Natural disasters that had somehow resolved themselves at the last moment. Every species we've encountered faces the same choice eventually, Jamin continued. They can remain isolated, developing at their own pace, or they can join the larger galactic community. But we never force that choice. We simply wait until they're ready to make it themselves. The demonstration chamber fell silent, except for the gentle humming of the ship's quantum processors and the soft breathing of terrified Kethmari. They had come to this system expecting to find primitive mammals, possibly worthy of study or conquest. Instead, they had discovered that they themselves were the primitive ones, children playing in a garden while beings of unimaginable power watched from the windows, ensuring their safety with casual interventions that bent the laws of physics. The proud Kethmari Dominion, conquerors of star systems and masters of biological technology, had been reduced to the status of a protected species, sheltered and guided by beings who treated the manipulation of galaxies as routine maintenance work. The orbital gardens of Earth hung in space like a crown of living jewels, each habitat a masterpiece of engineering that seemed to blend seamlessly with the natural beauty of growing things. Hicks still found himself in what humans called the Contemplation Grove, a massive biodome that somehow contained an entire forest ecosystem while floating freely in the vacuum of space. Dr. Young-hee had invited him here for what she called a quiet conversation, though Hickstel suspected it was more like therapy for a mind struggling to process everything he had witnessed. She was different from the other humans he had met. Where Admiral Tae-jin carried the weight of command and Engineer Soo-jin radiated youthful enthusiasm, Dr. Young-hee possessed something that felt almost familiar to the Kethmari way of thinking. Ancient wisdom combined with gentle patience. They sat on what appeared to be a simple wooden bench, beneath trees that definitely weren't native to any planet the Kethmari had catalogued. The leaves shifted through colors that had no names, and the bark seemed to contain swirling galaxies in miniature. Yet despite their impossible nature, the trees felt peaceful, welcoming, like old friends offering comfort. Below them, Earth turned, in its stately dance around the sun. But this wasn't the primitive world the Kethmari remembered from their ancient records. The planet was a living work of art, its surfaces covered with cities that looked more like vast gardens than urban centers. Massive structures that housed billions of beings grew from the earth like trees, their surfaces breathing with bioluminescent patterns that created a light show visible from orbit. "You're afraid we'll destroy you," Dr. Young-hee said gently, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the frequency of growing things. "Or worse, that we'll ignore you." Hickstel's silence stretched between them like a held breath. His four eyes remained fixed on the planet below, watching as aurora-like patterns of energy danced between the orbital habitats and the surface cities. Each pulse of light represented communications, transportation, or simply artistic expression on a scale that dwarfed anything his people had imagined possible. "Commander," Dr. Young-hee continued, "do you know what our greatest achievement is? It's not our technology, impressive as it might seem to someone encountering it for the first time. It's that we learned to grow without losing what made us human. We could have become gods, beings of pure energy manipulating reality from some distant dimension. Instead, we chose to remain gardeners." She gestured toward the vista spread below. Them. Earth's impossible cities were more visible now as the planet rotated, revealing structures that defied easy categorization. Some looked like crystalline forests reaching toward the stars. Others resembled coral reefs made of light and consciousness, housing communities of beings whose nature transcended simple biological categories. "Look at our cities," Dr. Young-hee said with obvious pride. "Every building is alive, every street a flowing river of conscious design. We house billions of beings while maintaining perfect ecological balance. Our children play in parks that exist in folded space-time, giving them room to run and explore while taking up no physical space at all. As if to illustrate her point, a group of human children came racing through the grove around them, their laughter creating visible ripples in the air. But these weren't ordinary children running through an ordinary forest. They moved in 3 dimensions, sometimes running up tree trunks and continuing their race through mid-air, sometimes diving into the ground and emerging from completely different locations. One child, barely old enough to walk, was casually juggling what appeared to be miniature black holes while giggling at the gravitational effects they created. "We've been the galaxy's immune system for 500,000 years," Dr. Young-hee continued, her voice taking on a tone of gentle revelation. "Every species in this galaxy has been touched by our protection in some way. Pirates that mysteriously disappear before they can raid peaceful colonies. Plagues that somehow cure themselves just before reaching pandemic levels. Asteroid impacts that miss populated worlds by margins so small they seem like miracles." The implications of her words settled over Hixtel like a warm blanket. All those times in Kethmari history when disaster had been narrowly averted, when their expansion into dangerous sectors had somehow proceeded without the expected casualties, when hostile species had simply vanished from their territorial borders. None of it had been luck or superior Kethmari strategy. "For you saved us," he said, his voice filled with wonder and a growing understanding. "All those times, every time." Dr. Young-hee nodded, her expression serene. "Not just you. Every species that showed potential for growth, for wisdom, for contributing. Something beautiful to the great symphony of galactic civilization. We've been watching, waiting, protecting, and hoping that eventually we could have conversations like this one." Around them, the orbital garden continued its gentle rotation, providing a constantly changing view of Earth and the solar system. Beyond, human vessels moved between the planets like schools of luminous fish, some carrying out tasks that defied easy explanation, others simply exploring for the joy of discovery. "You're not conquerors," Hixtel said, and for the first time, since entering this system, his voice carried certainty rather than fear. "No," Dr. Young-hee smiled, and her expression held depths of kindness that seemed to span millennia. "We're shepherds, and you, all of you, are not our subjects or our pets or our research specimens. You are our younger siblings. We've been waiting a very long time to finally meet you properly, to welcome you into the family we've been building among the stars." As if summoned by her words, the space beside their bench shimmered and Captain Ji-hoon materialized. But this wasn't the technological transportation Hixtel had grown accustomed to seeing. The human captain simply willed himself into existence, his consciousness choosing to manifest in this location through methods that transcended physical transportation entirely. "The Galactic Council is ready to receive you, Commander," Ji-hoon said, his voice carrying formal respect mixed with genuine warmth. "There are 17,000 species waiting to welcome the Kethmari home. Each one has their own story of first contact, their own journey from confusion to understanding to belonging." The number hit Hixtel like a gentle wave. 17,000 species. An entire galactic civilization that had been hidden from Kethmari, sensors not through deception or hostility, but through careful protection. They had been the newest members of a family so vast it spanned entire galactic arms. "Some species like yours developed biological technology," Captain Ji-hoon continued. "Others focused on quantum mechanics, dimensional engineering, or consciousness expansion. Each approach brought unique gifts to our collective understanding. The Kethmari mastery of bioship design, for instance, has already inspired 3 new artistic movements and 2 entirely new approaches to living architecture." Hixtel felt something shift inside his chest, a sensation he had never experienced before. The fear that had gripped him since entering this system was transforming into something else entirely. Wonder, yes, but also hope. And underneath it, all a warm certainty that he was no longer alone in a cold, hostile universe. "My people," he said, his voice carrying new strength. "They're terrified. They think you might eliminate us for being inferior." Dr. Young-hee's laugh was like music, carrying harmonics that made the trees around them sing in response. "Inferior? Commander, you've built a civilization that spans galaxies using purely biological technology. You've created living ships that are works of art as much as they are vehicles. You've maintained your essential nature and values across millions of years of expansion. That's not inferior, that's magnificent. In the distance, beyond the orbital gardens and the impossible cities of Earth, human children continued their play among the stars. Their laughter echoed across dimensions, creating ripples in space-time itself while their elders watched with infinite patience and love. The sound carried across the galaxy, a song of joy and possibility that invited all beings to join in the great dance of consciousness, exploring itself through countless forms. The Ketmari were finally home. The Fam. End.